Good morning, everybody. I unfortunately don't have my bell today because the podium got traded out, so I can't ring a ling a ling to let you know it's time to start class. So you have to just go by my voice for the bell today. But welcome, everybody. I'm glad y'all are here, and we've got some new people with us as well. So welcome everybody that's new. We have a great class. I kind of told you guys last week that I had a somewhat of a special treat for you, that I was going to put together a video of some things that are happening in Jerusalem right now that look like they are the beginning of fulfillment of prophecy. So I'm going to play the video, and just to give you a little bit of background, it's a lady. She's Brazilian, and she's in Israel. Sorry, I'm hearing my voice in the background. It's throwing me off. But anyway, she's in Israel, and she has this channel called Israel with Aline. And she goes to the Dead Sea area, and she does other things. She tours around Israel and does different lessons about the nation of Israel. About 6 months ago or so, some things started happening in Jerusalem that are, as you'll see, quite important, and even continue till now. And you'll see that they are quite special, the things that are going on. You'll also see there's some changes that have been happening over the last couple of years as far as what they call lanes or sinkholes have been forming in the nation of Israel, or especially around the Dead Sea. And in these sinkholes, water is then filling up, fresh water from underground, that then some is flowing into the Dead Sea. And these are areas like on the banks of the Dead Sea where this is happening, and literally because the Dead Sea has receded so much in the last 25 years, this is literally where the Dead Sea used to be. But I'll let her explain all that as you see, and you'll have pictures and you'll see it as well. So we'll get that started here in just a minute, but as we always do, let's begin with prayer, and then I got some jokes for you, and even have one that was submitted as a joke. So who will start us off with prayer, and we'll begin? Thank you.
Father, we thank you again for all your many blessings upon us. We thank you for the freedom to gather and worship today. And we ask your blessing upon us and Charles especially as he brings the message. Give us ears to hear your word through him, Father. We thank you for him. And thank you for this time together around your throne. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right, so let me tell you the submitted joke first. So there's this group of golfers, and they're off playing in a round of golf, and they see this group in front of them that happens to be three blind guys playing golf. And so this group that's behind them, the first guy says, "Look, that's awesome. I've never seen blind people play golf before. That's awesome. I'm going to buy those guys lunch when we all get back to the clubhouse." Well, the second guy said, "Yeah, you know what? I think I'm going to buy him a drink too, because that's just wow, right? Wow." And the third guy says, "I'm not buying him nothing." And they looked at him and they said, "Well, why? Isn't that great?" He said, "No, they're blind. They should be playing at night." All right, so that's our first joke. That one was submitted by James. So, all right. So now let me tell you mine. Hopefully mine go off as well as James's did. At a children's church, the teacher was teaching her class about the difference between right and wrong. All right, children, she said, let's think of another example. So if I were to get into a man's pocket and I were to take his billfold and all of his money out of it, what would I be? Well, the little boy in the back raised his hand and with a confident smile blurted out, "You'd be his wife." All right. I know, I got to be careful sometimes, right? All right.
We do. We can't laugh at that.
I know, right? There was a time I couldn't either. A little boy was watching TV in the den while his father was reading the newspaper, and in the living room. And his father heard a tapping on the other side of his newspaper, so he tilted it down and saw it was his son. And he looked and he said, "What is it, son?" And the little boy said, "Daddy, is it true that storks bring babies?" And father answered, "Yes, son, that's true." Well, the boy was satisfied, so he turned around and watched the TV. A few minutes later, father heard the tapping on the back of his newspaper again, and the little boy asked, well, Daddy, is it true that God helps those who help themselves? And the father said, yes, son, that's true. So satisfied again, the boy turned around and started watching TV again. Well, a few minutes later, the father heard again another tapping on his newspaper, and he pulled it down. The little boy said, okay, Daddy, so is it true that God gives us our daily bread? And Dad answered, yes, son, that's absolutely true. Well, the boy looked very puzzled. And finally he said, well, Daddy, then what do we need you for? All right. You didn't like that one? Okay. All right. One last one, and then we'll get started. After the christening of his baby brother in church, little Billy sobbed all the way home in the back seat of the car. And his father kept asking him, son, what's wrong? What's wrong? But he wouldn't say anything. And finally, when they made it home, little Billy replied, he said, Dad, the preacher said that God wanted us to be, or sorry, let me say that again. The preacher prayed to God that he wanted us to be brought up in a Christian home. And I really wanted to stay with you and Mommy. All right, so those are our jokes for the day. I hope you enjoyed them. All right, so let's get started with this video. And I've got it set so it'll play through the TV. Hopefully it's not too loud. If it is, let me get the remote so I can turn it down. And mostly I'm going to let it play because she does a good job of explaining everything.
Hello and welcome back to Israel with Alin.
It is
Today
translated, so
the region, which is a biblical and prophetic zone. And we are going to learn in depth about the sinkholes, which are these craters that are opening up here in the Dead Sea region. And we will see the destruction and also the life that they are bringing here to the region. And we will understand how all of this connects to the prophecies of Zechariah and Ezekiel. So if you are ready, let's get started. Think we are now in the So, these gigantic sinkholes that are forming, this connects us personally. I don't know if you guys are there listening, but this connects us with the biblical prophecies of Zechariah and Ezekiel. And now what we're going to do, we're going to leave this destruction zone, and we're going to continue to see more sinkholes and even more phenomena that are happening here, the destruction, its beauty, but also life reborn here. And then we're really going to start seeing the beginning of the fulfillment of many biblical prophecies. But before I say all this here, let's really move on, because honestly, today we're going to show things that are unexplainable to you guys. Let's go. Dead Sea region these days.
that's
But to
something.
understand everything that is happening here, we have to go back in history, go back more than 3,600 years ago, when this whole region was green and full of life. I know it's a bit hard to imagine, but nowadays we see sulfur, salt, heat, destruction, that it was a green place. But the Bible tells us that this place was like a Garden of Eden. What happened? Here in the region, there were 5 cities that were evil in the eyes of God. And God sends a great destruction to these cities and to the entire region. The region will be destroyed with fire and sulfur, which we still see here to this day. And the place will become desolate. Nothing grows here. See that there is absolutely nothing. The temperatures here in the summer can reach 50 degrees. The salinity does not allow anything to grow or live here, not even in the surrounding salt and much less in the Dead Sea. And that's why when we read the prophecies of Zechariah and Ezekiel that say this region will come back to life, most people doubt it. It doesn't make sense looking at this terrain, looking at this sea, that it would ever become green again. But many phenomena that have happened and are happening in recent years, they are directly linked to these prophecies.
Aline, I want to show you a very special phenomenon.
What she's about to tell you is very important. Let me just say this real quick. She's about to explain.
Hello and welcome back to Israel with
She's
Aline.
about to explain that this is only happening in Israel. It's not happening on the
Today
other
we are
side
back
in
in the
Jordan.
Dead Sea. But to understand everything, the scriptures here in
What's
the
that?
Ezekiel that say this region will come back to
Hang
life.
on, one more time, say it.
Did you do the closed caption?
No, it did that on its own.
No, can you do the closed caption?
Oh, can I do it? No, unfortunately, no. Was it hard to hear?
Yeah.
Sorry. I can try and do it this way. Let me do it this way. I might be able to do it. Hang on. Let's try that. Okay. But what she's about to tell you is that this, there's the captions. What she's about to tell you is that this is only happening in Jerusalem. It's not happening in Jordan or the areas other than in Israel. Technical difficulties, sorry. Here we go. There's the mouse. There we go. Now you're good.
Hello and welcome back to Israel. And then we understand why the Bible also calls this place the Sea of Salt, precisely because of the amount of salt that is here in this region. In Portuguese, we call all this zone is the Dead Sea. In Hebrew it would be, but we do not call this region Dead Sea because we know that it currently has no life, but by future prophecies it will have. And that's why I want to ask you what name you want to give this place here the day it comes back to life. And one more interesting thing is that we are in the Dead Sea, and it is divided. Part of the Dead Sea is in Israel, and the other side of the Dead Sea, where we can see the mountains, is Jordan. But all these phenomena that we are talking about, the salt pearls, the bolanas, the craters, all of this that we are talking about, the fish, everything is only on the Israeli side.
There's no other side. Only this one exists.
Are there fish on the side? No.
There is.
Are there pools in Jordan?
There's a lot or a little.
I mean, how many are there?
There's the maximum.
Discussing the limited number of bolanas, how many are near Israel?
9,600. Every day, 2 bolanas will open. Every day, 2 bolanas will open. Every day, 2 bolanas.
It's not bananas, it's bananas.
Here, some of them already have water, some of them have fresh water, some of them have fish. We will also, at the end of the video, go there again to show you the fish. But
The fish have only shown up in the last 6
that are
months.
happening in the Dead Sea are happening only on this side. So we can see that when the prophecies refer not only to the Dead Sea, but I mean the Dead Sea on the side where the people of Israel live to this day.
Are
there more things for us to see?
There are many more things. Shall we go on, Sisi?
Let's go. In vain, as you can see, the spring is here and it creates this river that runs to the Dead Sea. So we see all the
That's fresh
pieces
water.
fitting together, and the wheel keeps opening. In reality, what we are seeing, folks, are many phenomena that seem natural, but that all these phenomena are fitting in with what the prophecies speak. So it really may be that we are witnessing with our own eyes the beginning of the fulfillment of biblical prophecies still in our generation, prophecies that were written 2,600 years ago. So now just wait and see, because this is a very, very fast phenomenon. How many colonies open here per year or per day? All
They will open 2 bolanas, and now there are 9,000. So
already has 9,600 balanes, 2 each day. That is really, our generation is witnessing all this, and the question is how this will develop in the next few years, and really only God knows.
All right, now they're about to show you the fish.
Look at everyone. Is everyone watching the little fish? The bush over there is full. Have a look.
look there, so many people there. Look at the large groups of people. There are so many little fish there.
Very tiny, but you can see them.
Aline, did you see them? Are you in the car?
I'm seeing.
Look how many large groups of
See 'em
people
all
you
in
see,
here?
thank God. See how many? They're all fish. Look at that large group, people. Look at that large group. Thank God. Oh, thank God. Look how beautiful, beautiful, beautiful people.
No, 3 weeks.
Found this fish yesterday. Take a picture.
Over there, look how beautiful, folks. Look how beautiful they are. Look, it's here. Here's the big change.
Look, she went up, she went far. Now look how beautiful. Look there, look.
How beautiful they are. Look, it went out a lot. Guys, Shlomi brought us here for a bolani. As you saw here at the bolani, there are huge groups of fish, a large amount of fish, small swimming, and it's important, the Bible says it's important to have at least 2 witnesses. So I want to know, guys, did you see the fish or not? Yes. So guys, here you can trust my word and Shlomi's, but also everyone who is here with us, who is really in the Dead Sea region, inside the Balane, witnessing and seeing all this. And a little more about the fish that live here. The scientific name of this species is Aphanius richardsoni. This is an endemic species, which means it lives only here in the Dead Sea region and nowhere else in the world.
So these fish are only there.
This is very interesting, as it shows us that the species is from this region and could not have been brought from anywhere else. And this species is really very adaptable. In addition to surviving at different salinity levels, they also withstand water temperature variations between 10 and 35 degrees. And so they manage to survive both in the summer and in the winter.
And this is one of the freshwater balenes emptying into the Dead Sea itself.
Several freshwater pools. How does freshwater arrive? The main way this freshwater arrives is through springs. So here in these bowls come springs of fresh water. Where does this fresh water come from? From the mountain of Haifa, the water that rains in the Jerusalem area. It enters underground, it runs underground, and it springs up here. So all these bowls fill up with fresh water. But where does this fresh water go? To the Dead Sea. Around here there are rivers. So the freshwater rivers flow into and fall into the Dead Sea.
Prior to the last few years,
when we
none of
talk
this was
about
happening.
fish in the Dead Sea, obviously we are talking about fish in the Dead Sea region. Inside the Dead Sea, at the bottom there are no fish. Let's make this very clear.
You're saying at the very bottom of the Dead Sea there's no
And all the
fish.
time inside the
But
Dead
right
Sea,
here,
in the deep part, there
where
are
it
fish,
empties in,
because
at
it's
first
extremely
they're all
salty
water.
water. But the fish are here in the region of the Dead Sea, and where the Dead Sea was 20, 30 years ago, where there shouldn't be fish, there are. And an interesting phenomenon that's also happening, which I think I've never shown in any video, but you who are here with me will see firsthand, is these rivers of water. This here is a freshwater river, right? It has a slightly different color because it's mixing here with the materials that are around. And it flows to the Dead Sea. So this part of the Dead Sea here, is it fresh or salt water? Fresh. So you have here a layer of fresh water, and around you have all the extremely salty water. So yes, there is a little bit of fresh water here. Interestingly, we observed a huge number of fish in the bowl. Do you think the fish don't get here? They do. Shlomi has shared videos here showing small fish that arrive. So in this specific part of the Dead Sea, due to a very special, different circumstance, yes, some small fish can live here. And when we say that we can't catch,
It's very muddy.
exactly as I was saying, folks. So this is water here, folks.
All right, I'm going to skip ahead.
So
The next thing that she's going to show you, she talks about
we came here today.
they're now in the cave of Sodom. And that's sulfur. But they're in the cave of Sodom, and they're about to show us life in the caves of Sodom that is now beginning to grow. This started happening about 3 weeks ago, where they found plants growing in salt in a salt cave, literally in Sodom. And this is called the cave of Sodom. So they actually had to crawl in through here, through an entrance to get in. I'll show you the entrance real quick that they crawled in through. And then they're going to show you the life inside the cave that's now growing.
Shlomi is
There's
in
the
this
cave
vein,
entrance.
who also speaks a bit of our language, and he will guide us through today's adventure and tell us, Shlomi, where are we going to enter the mountain of Sodom?
I'm going to enter here.
Here?
Yeah.
So guys, we're literally going to crawl. Guys, look here, we can already see the whole cave made of salt.
And this cave is entirely
Shlomi is also
salt.
riding.
And so they're having to crawl inside to get inside.
And
Let me
he
skip forward. She tells you about how this is, scientists still don't understand. They are studying it. They sent samples to a lab because scientists at first wouldn't even come out. They said, no, it's not possible. There's nothing growing in there. So somebody kicked some plants in there or something. And they brought in, you'll see the scientists actually, they took video of them extracting plants from inside this salt cave of Sodom, which, if you know about plants, they don't grow in salt. They can't grow in salt. And they're also, this is a cave that has no light. It's entirely in darkness 24 hours a day, except they brought their lights so we could see. So it's no light, and it's salt, and no water in here, and yet there's plants growing, as you're about to see. And this all began about a month ago, approximately.
prophecies. The prophecies that say that in the Dead Sea region, which includes Sodom, one day life will return.
Check this out.
You see it?
The feeling is like walking on ice.
It's not big, it's not burns.
Touching this. I'm always looking to see if there's more, and I'm always looking. And once you get the new one has come out, look, completely new.
And
All the time I'm looking to see if there's more and more.
And they're actively growing. They're not dead. They're not something embedded in the wall.
More mature, so it needs to dry a little.
There's a leaf.
guys, can you see that it's a very, very small plant? 1 meter leaves. For those who don't know, we are used to Amazon forest. This seems like nothing, but see the importance. Even if it's a small leaf, it's already a revolution in reality. Why? Because there is no life at all in Sodom. For thousands of years, nothing grows here, not a leaf, not algae, nothing. Nothing grows here, not even moss. And the fact that something is found, even if it's something so small here, is literally unbelievable. And my question is, when you found this,
Let's skip forward to where they show the scientists extracting.
without water, got into someone's shoe who there are no plants, there is
And started to dig. Think, one missed it.
out in their laboratory, and probably, this is not a quick thing, but probably maybe in the next
I thought they had to, I may have skipped that part in here. Anyway, they sent off the samples
which is
to
one of the top
scientists.
100.
And normally nothing will grow here at all. So even these small plants that are growing are not the norm. Again, it's over the last couple months that this has started happening. The fish have been going on for about since August, July or August of last year. So 6 months or so. And as she said, even the fresh water that's flowing into the Dead Sea itself, they're seeing fish there inside the Dead Sea. Now, deep into the Dead Sea, no, still not, because it's too salty. But if you've got enough fresh water flowing in there, and these fish can survive in brackish water, it's a matter of time before there's enough fresh water mixed with the salt water in the Dead Sea for it to change the overall ability for these fish to live further into the sea. Either way, you've already started to fulfill the prophecy just by the fish being there. The prophecy doesn't say they'll be deep in the Dead Sea. It just says there'll be fish in the Dead Sea, and there are. So the prophecy technically is already fulfilled. But the growth there also is amazing. Again, scientists haven't answered yet anything of how, why, or how it's possible or anything. So as soon as I hear more, I'll let you know. But it's good, too, that if you want to look at this yourself, it's Israel with Aline on YouTube. and you'll probably get a better picture, and she's got much more videos. I hodgepodge together several videos to give you what we watched this morning. But the point of all this, guys, as we were talking about last week, is God's working, even today. And all the things that many people would say are not possible, for those of us that know God, we know that there is nothing impossible for God, including, this. So let me mute this TV. So that's closing back behind me in the ear. There we go. And so this is something we as Christians expect, right? The rest of the world, these scientists, they're baffled. I'm not baffled. I know exactly what's happening. The Bible already told me. Thousands of years ago told us, right? So we're not baffled, yet they are. And I'm sure they'll come up with some explanation for it. But the fact of the matter is, there's things growing where they shouldn't grow, where the Bible said they would grow, where they're not supposed to be growing, right? And that, to me, is speaks to the validity of what we know as Christians. All right. But I would actually encourage you to go check her channel out. It's really a cool channel, and she does tours of different places in Israel. It's not just this. Israel with Alin is what it's called, Aline, on YouTube. Yeah, I'm gonna turn off the captions now. All right. So let's get back to where we left off in our our lesson here on the life of David. Here we go. And as we recall, when we last talked, basically Abner has come to David. This is the civil war between the northern tribes and David are going on, right? The 10 tribes that have aligned with Ishbosheth, the 12 tribes, or 11 tribes that have aligned with Ishbosheth, and then the one tribe that's aligned with David. And so Abner, being the commander of Ishbosheth's army, has reached out to David and said, listen, I'll cut a covenant with you that because he was insulted by Abner, as we recall. Ishbosheth was insulted Abner by saying, you slept with the concubine of Saul, right? And he was doing that just to get, I guess, him in trouble, right? So he could regain power, because Ishbosheth was basically a king in name only, right? He didn't truly have the power. Abner did. And so he tried to get rid of Abner, or tried to lessen Abner's power, which in turn caused Abner to be upset, right? He could have died from that, right? If you slept with the concubine of the king, that was treason and punishable by death. So, by Ishbosheth calling this out on Abner, he literally put his life in danger. So Abner says, look, because you've insulted me and you know I didn't do that, I'm now going to turn my allegiance over to David, and I'm going to convince everybody that has their allegiance with you to do the same. So he goes to David and he says, David, look, I want to cut a covenant with you. The kingdom is rightfully yours because God told you it would be. So as we learned here, Abner knew all along that this was God's plan, and even though he knew it was God's plan, he fought against it for several years and tried to place Ishbosheth on the throne. So David says, okay, fine, I'll cut a covenant with you. First, though, before I'm even willing to even see you, talk to you, anything, I want my wife back. I want Michal back, right? And as we talked last week, many scholars say that this was a very politically smart move. I can't deny that. It was. But I don't think that was David's primary motivation. As we've seen in David's life up to this point, nothing he does is solely for political purposes, as far as we can tell, right? He tends to be doing what is righteous and what is right first, and then, if it helps politically, great. But that doesn't seem to be his primary motive. It's always doing what would be right in God's eyes, including, the Bible clearly tells us he loved Michal. She loved him, right? She risked her life for him when she let him out, or lowered him out the window to save his life from Saul, her father, trying to kill him. So I think that the true thing here that's going on is David loved her and wanted her back. And part of why we have further evidence of that is the last thing we looked at before we had to close up class was where he didn't even wait for Abner to deliver the covenant that he said, okay, fine, I'll cut a covenant with you, go get Michal first, right? He didn't even wait. He then goes straight to Ishbosheth himself and says, I want her back now. I'm not waiting, right? So David sent messengers to Ishbosheth and said, give me my wife Michal, to whom I was betrothed. So he's not even waiting. So that's definitely, if it was political that he was after, that wasn't a smart move politically, right? But it speaks to his love, right? It speaks to the fact this was his first love. Sure, he has other wives, but like we talked about last week, I'm sure you remember the first person you kissed. I'm sure you remember your first love. Probably have a special place in your heart for him, even though that was many years ago, and I don't know, it may be your wife now or husband now. But for many of us, it isn't, right? And so I think the same thing is here. David loved her as she loved him, and he wanted her back. Now, as we see, this leads to who she's been given in marriage to now. Paltiel is upset, and sure, who wouldn't be, right? Your wife is literally taken from you, even though she was technically, rightfully David's wife. He's upset and doesn't want to let her go. And so he literally follows her, it tells us, Paltiel, but her husband went with her, weeping as he went, and followed her as far as Bahurim, until Abner basically told him, go away, go back home. You're not getting her, it's over, it's done, right? And so he went back home. So it's sad. We should be saddened for him because, think about that. That's not his fault any of this happened. Saul created this situation where he betrothed his daughter to two different men, which that's part of why God's rules are the way they are, is to cause things like this from happening, or people getting hurt unnecessarily. So that's kind of where we left everything last week. So let's move on from there. I do want to show you where it says that they loved each other. 1 Samuel 18:28, and these are lessons we did a long time ago. Then Saul saw and knew that Yahweh was with David, and that Michal, Saul's daughter, loved David. And then also we have, so Michal let David down through a window, and he went out and fled and escaped. That's where she risked her life for him. So, I truly think his motivation here was love. All right. So let's see what happens next. Who will read for me 2 Samuel 3:17 through 19, and then we'll discuss it. You got it? All right.
Now Abner had consultation with the elders of Israel, saying, in times past you were seeking for David to be king over you. So now do it, for Yahweh has spoken of David, saying, by the hand of my servant David I will save my people Israel from the hand of the Philistines and from the hand of all their enemies. Abner also spoke in the hearing of Benjamin. In addition, Abner went to speak in the hearing of David and Hebron all that was good in the sight of Israel and in the sight of the whole house of Benjamin. Very
good, thank you. So, as Abner told Ishbosheth he was going to do, he's now literally campaigning for David. He goes to persuade the elders of Israel to accept David as king. And Abner reminds the tribal leaders that many of them already wanted David as king earlier, right? And he had convinced them to put Ishbosheth on the throne. So I guess what we can take from this is after Saul's death, there was pretty widespread support for David's kingship, right? But Abner came in and through political maneuvering, like we talked about a few weeks back, he changed their mindset, right? But now he's urging them to change back, right? So he's saying, make good on your desire to make David king. And he even, as it says here, he invokes the Lord's promise, saying he knows that David was promised the kingdom. And probably that was a pretty well-known thing at that point, that God intended for David to be king. And so he basically paraphrased that God would deliver Israel through David's kingship as well. We don't have really a direct record of the exact quote Abner gives, so this is probably a summary. It's not the exact words, obviously, and he probably said quite a bit more. But it's pretty good here that he's literally going through this and telling them, give your loyalty to David. And he's actively trying to pursue them, pursue them giving their loyalty. And so he's admitting that he was resisting God's plan for David all along. In this message, it's pretty clear he knows this was God's plan. And he admits it not only to us, in effect, but also to all these elders as well. But what we can glean from this is knowing God and knowing His will isn't enough. Just knowing what God wants in your life isn't enough. You have to not just know it, you have to act on it, right? You have to put in place God's will in your life, not just acknowledge it, right? And Abner, as much as he knew what God's will was, he didn't act on it. He acted on the opposite of it, actually, which we do too, right? I've done it myself. I'm sure we all have. But for us to gain from this, we should realize that what it's teaching us is we should have Jesus as our own king, and not, like Abner did, make something else our king out of convenience, right? Many times in our life, we may make the world our king, right? TV might be our king. We can't get our eyes off of The Price is Right instead of reading our Bible, right? So that can become your king instead of the true king that you should have, and that is God, right? And so what it's trying to get across to us is each of us can do the same thing that Abner is doing here. In our own self-interest, we can put God on a shelf, knowing God's will is for Him to be in our life as our king, and yet we put Him on a shelf and deny that will of God so that we can do our own thing, right? Or coax our own flesh in the process. And he says here in verse 19, Abner also spoke about hearing of Benjamin. So he's talking about there the tribe of Benjamin, Saul's tribe, and he's basically saying that they were the ones that were probably most reluctant to give up the kingship to David because, Saul was a Benjaminite. Man, I can't talk today. But Abner, also being a Benjaminite, he was saying, because he's Saul's cousin, right? So he was saying, look, I'm a Benjaminite. I, support him. So that's okay. Just because we are from the house of Benjamin doesn't mean we can't support him as king. And so he's basically saying, I'm loyal, I'm being loyal, and that doesn't mean you are being disloyal to the house of Saul because this is God's will, right? So Abner's influence among his tribe there softens their resistance. And he continues and says, in addition, Abner went to speak in the hearing of David in Hebron and all that was good in the sight of Israel and in the sight of the whole house of Benjamin. So it really suggests that Abner is delivering the news to David of his success, that he went to David himself in Hebron and told him, look, I've got them convinced, right? They're going to give their loyalties to you. And so David, of course, surely he would be happy at that. And realizing at that point Abner had effectively become his advocate, an ally instead of an enemy. And it's ironic that the man who actually fought for so long against David now also has become his ally, right? And it reflects really God's providence as well, that He can turn enemies of ours into allies if we let Him. But what separates that is, notice how David treated him all along. Right? When Abner came to him, what would most of us do? We'd say, go away from me. You've been mean, right? You've been bad. You're not my friend. We would push him away. But that's not what David did. David said, I'll hear what you got to say, but first of all, I want my wife back, right? So he was saying, I'll talk to you. I'll cut a covenant with you. I'll work with you. Sure, we could be allies. There's some conditions to it, but we can be allies. So he didn't push him away like we would do. If somebody's ever wronged you, I'm sure you've done it. I've done it. Where you've told them, I have nothing to do with you. Last time I saw you, you treated me like trash, right? And that's not what we should do. We should take the example of David and realize we can't change anybody's heart. Only God can. And He will if we are acting in righteousness toward everyone, including our enemies, right? Then God can act in righteousness towards us and make that enemy an ally. And I tend to find, that your life is a lot easier that way anyway, right? You're not going to have as much strife if you treat everyone as a friend, even when they're not. Because guess what? It's very hard to be mean to you while you're being kind to someone. They can do it. I've had them do it. Trust me, I've had people do it. But it's harder for them to do it, right? And so it tends to soften their rudeness, tends to soften their angst or whatever against you. And that's God softening their heart, not you. But God will do it if you act in righteousness as He's commanded us as His children to do. So, David here, the rightful king, he waited until the people voluntarily decided to follow him. And that's important, again, a lesson for us in how to live, right? Instead of rushing things along, instead of deciding we know when the plan should be enacted, we should wait on God's plan to come to fruition. And that means trusting that God's plan is the right plan. And the only way that you can show that is by waiting on God, right? It's one thing to say, I trust God. It's another thing to live your life like that. Because it's quite easy to say, I trust him. It's quite easy to say it. It's another thing to live it. And yet that's what David's doing. He's literally living that life, right? And as we've talked so many times in the past, David's a flawed man. No different than any of us, right? He's not perfect. He's going to make some huge mistakes coming up. He's already made some big ones we've already learned about, right? And he's going to make some more, which that should easily tell you that he's no different than you. No different than you. You can be just as much a man or woman after God's own heart as David was. But it's a choice you have to make. A choice you have to make daily, right? Because each new day is a new challenge. And I've learned from a long line of hard lessons that taking more than one day at a time is futile. It's futile. Because I don't have the strength to take more than one day at a time, number one. And the strength I do have is only given to me by God. And each time I think I'm doing great and I've got this under control, and is right when I mess up, right? And then I got to go back going, I'm sorry, God. I got on autopilot, and I let circumstances draw me into something sinful, or I was short with somebody or whatever, instead of doing what I should have done and taking one day at a time, right? And that's what David's teaching us here. Take each day as new, right? And take each person as your friend, even if they were your enemy. And if you live your life like that, I promise you it'll be easier. It's a lot simpler. And you won't become bitter. Bitterness can be a huge, huge drain on your life. But, all right. So David is waiting for the people to come to him. And look, this also shows us the unity of God's people. Another spiritual lesson here is we should be seeking unity amongst ourselves as Christians, right? Civil strife or strife within a church can be damaging not only to you, but that church as a whole, right? And so, like Israel's civil war here, this can be very damaging. And so David's doing everything he can, including acting in humility himself, right? Because, look, some people would say, well, that's weak. You're being weak towards Abner. No, he's not. It's strong. It takes a kind of strength that you don't even understand to be that guy that David's being, right? It takes weakness to be the other thing where you're like, go away from me. That's weak. That is weak. As a matter of fact, Jesus, when he was talking about meekness, the word meek means strength under control, right? So the word meek, when he says the meek shall inherit the earth, what he's talking about there is a person who's meek is somebody that, although they may have the power to pummel you, they won't, because they have control of that, right? So just like this, David literally has more power than this man, and he knows he's called by God than Abner, and yet he doesn't act that way. He acts in humility towards Abner, which is what, again, we're called to do. Yes, Brian?
We know that David could have ended this long ago. We know that he could have ended Saul's life if he wanted to.
3 times prior.
But he didn't.
Right.
He restrained himself, just as Jesus restrained. I mean,
Absolutely.
I think I was talking to somebody about this, that Jesus on a cross, I said at any point he was always God.
Yes.
He was always God from the time he was a baby till the time he was a 33-year-old man. He was always God.
It was Awana you were saying this, by the way. It was.
Right.
Yeah. Last week.
At any point he could have said, we're not doing this.
Right. And called angels.
I mean, he spoke the universe into existence
Right.
by just saying a word.
Right.
And those planets flew from his presence or his mouth as
Right.
he spoke the words. At any point on the cross, he could have said, hey, we're not doing this, and destroyed all those that, but he restrained himself.
Right. For us.
And in the same way, David restrained himself from, he had the power to take Saul out.
Sure.
He had the power to take Abner out
Sure.
if he wanted to, at any time. But he didn't do it because it wasn't God's plan.
Right. And we're about to see another aspect of that too.
As Jesus, it wasn't God's plan that he destroyed those people in front of him.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And as you said, it was a control. He had power there, and the world sees it as weakness.
No. Yeah.
But
It's not.
as you said, it takes more power to do it this way than it does to just end it.
You bet.
You know?
Absolutely. And good point you're making, that this reflects Christ, right? And that is what David is trying to do, is be a reflection of God, a reflection of Christ, as we should, right? And so just remember that meekness is not weakness. Meekness is true power, the kind of power that most people don't exhibit. All right, and we're going to come to something else that we're going to see here, a situation that happens right after this, where again, David acts in restraint, right? And he actually says, I'm powerless. That's not true, but he'll say it. And the reason he's saying it is he's talking in reference to, he's powerless in reference to God, meaning he is powerless to do his will. He wants to do God's will instead, right? And we'll see that here in the next verses. So let's do this discussion question first, and then we'll get to that. David's journey of patiently suffering during the reign of another, eventually being acknowledged by all, has parallels to Jesus, as you just mentioned. In what ways does David's story in this chapter foreshadow the kingship of Christ? And I think you said a lot. Does anybody else want to add to that? Any thoughts? Brian covered it pretty well, yes. All right, well then we'll move forward. All right, so who read for me 2 Samuel 3:20 through 21?
That was easy.
You got it? Okay.
No hard name. Then Abner and 20 men with him came to David at Hebron. And David made a feast for Abner and the men who were with him. And Abner said to David, let me arise and go and gather all Israel to my lord the king, that they may cut a covenant with you, and that you may be king over all that your soul desires. So David sent Abner away, and he went in peace.
So Abner, while he's in Hebron, he goes and tells David, okay, I've got them all convinced, right? So now let's do this, right? I'm going to bring them to you. We're going to cut a covenant, and all's going to be good, and then this civil war's over, right? And so David, you notice there, David sends him away in peace, right? And what that means is everything's good, right? And in David's mind, it's all over, it's all done, right? He's not being mean, he's not being rude, no subterfuge, no nothing, right? Whereas Abner in the past has acted that way, but David's not doing anything in return to him. So the word peace in these verses actually foreshadows the outcome that can be expected when we follow David's righteous example for our own conflicts. Meaning, if you live your life the way David is here, if you act in integrity with those that harm you or wrong you, right, then you can expect that God will turn that to your good. The Bible clearly tells us that God will turn that to your good. It's not something you can do, but God can. But you've got to act in righteousness and integrity towards them, and then God will do that, right? And in these verses, it kind of exemplifies how we should gracefully forgive those who have wronged us or have done something against us. So what are some practical ways that we can act as peacemakers like this in situations where there's conflict? How can we as Christians be a peacemaker? Perhaps even if it's not our own argument. Maybe it's somebody in our family that's fighting or whatever. Any thoughts? Yes.
I mean, we could step up and be the person that says, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know?
Sure.
If that person won't say it, let it come out of your mouth, because that's what God would call you to do.
Sure.
Say, hey, I'm sorry, and I don't want conflict with you. I want friendship. I mean, I've had that many times in my life where the other person wronged me, but I say, hey, it'll make peace between us and we can be friends.
Sure.
We wouldn't want to be friends again, you know?
Sure. Sure. And that's a great, it's a great tip, a great example. And I'll tell you what, I've had people say, but then you're not, then they don't know they wronged you. That's not true. They know they wronged you, right? And you know what you've done is right, right? So even if you're saying I'm sorry, it's not that you're admitting you've done something wrong, right? You are trying to diffuse the situation by being humble, by having humility, right? Which is what we as Christians are called to be and who we're called to be, right? And so when you then that night pray to God, you can go to God in pride, right? That you have done what He would call His Son to do, right? I can tell you that there have been many arguments that ended by me saying, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you with whatever I said, so I apologize. When they were the one that raised their voice, they were the one that said bad things, et cetera, and I said nothing wrong, right? But it stopped the argument, right? They turned around and a couple of them, you could see the look on their face was like, what just happened, right? I was ready to fight, How'd that work? We're not fighting now, right? And I've told people I don't want to argue with you. What I'm saying to you is to try and help you. But if it's upsetting you, I don't want to upset you. So I'd rather not discuss it if it's going to upset you. And I've had people literally get the quiz look on their face like they couldn't believe that I would apologize for them being rude. And that's a great way of acting this, in your own life, right? Good example. Any other thoughts? Yes.
I can remember, even as a little child, there was always friction with my aunt who raised me, and then my mom who got me back, took me from school at 7. And I guess I would look at it as being a peacemaker, but I like the word you use, diffuse. I couldn't thought of that word. But like on the job, like if you got like a teacher, maybe there's a misunderstanding in an email or something, or
Sure.
maybe they're in a workroom, or maybe you being the aide, you gotta, go and take something or whatever the case may be. And the other party believed that that party meant to do it, they conjuring it up, and that's all, whatever.
Right.
And yet you know the truth.
Sure.
I've always took it upon myself, especially in the job situation, but it stemmed from being a child, to say, no, that individual was not, there when this was said.
Right.
This individual was so and so and so. So I always, and I thank God for that, I guess He may have placed that in me, and I think I may have used the word diffuse.
Sure.
Stop a lot of friction or,
Sure.
just disappointment over, messing with that, just teacher or just even, my peers,
Sure.
assistants or whatever, misunderstanding what the teacher meant by this or, why they chose you to do that over this.
Right.
I don't know, I just always felt like, no.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
It's not the case. This is the case, so.
And that's
I
good.
guess that's a peacemaker. I don't
Yeah,
I
no,
guess.
that's exactly what you're doing, and that's Jesus said, "Blessed be the peacemakers, for they shall find peace." And so when you are going on behalf of another like that, and you're trying to, like you said, diffuse the situation between two people that aren't even you, then yeah, you're being a peacemaker for God, right? And so that is a work of ministry, quite frankly. So keep doing it. That's awesome. And that's what we should do, right? We should seek to bring people together and not pull them apart, right? And you know what? How many times have we met those people that their whole life is about pulling people apart? I know them. I know you know them. I know them. And it's sad because if their whole life is predicated on somebody else's pain, that's pretty bad. Imagine how deep their pain must be if they have to make themselves feel good by tearing other people apart. That's sad. But they need as much help as the people they're tearing apart, even though they act like they don't. Yes?
That's kind of what I was thinking. There's some people that are very in the mindset of just making profits, permanent, constantly.
Certainly.
And there's been a few times over the years where I have had to tell somebody, even if it wasn't true, that this person if it is true, you need to keep that mindset that, you know, you can't walk around thinking that everybody's out to get you, everybody's doing, you know.
Sure.
You just have to, even if they are.
Sure.
Just let that go. I mean, that's on them.
Sure, absolutely. And again, that goes back to what I was talking about earlier, bitterness. You know, bitterness is something that can destroy your life. It can destroy you. And there are some Christians that I've seen that their life is filled with bitterness. And every other way, right, they are living a good Christian life, and they're so bitter and so in their deep self, and it can sicken you. It can get so bad that it gets to a point where it literally makes you ill. So, yeah, careful of that not creeping into your own life. Yes.
I know myself, you know, we get on Facebook, and I mean, all of us probably have some liberal family members that like to argue on Facebook, and every once in a while, you know, one will get me, and I will say, listen, I love you. We're not going to do this.
Sure.
You just want to argue, and I don't want to
Sure.
argue. I just want there to be peace between me and you. So let's stop it here. And sometimes it makes it worse.
Yeah.
And then you know for sure that hey, they're looking to make me angry.
I'm paraphrasing, but I can't remember the exact proverb, so pardon me for it, but I know there's a proverb that says when a person argues with a fool, they create two fools. I can't remember the exact wording of it, but that's the gist of it, right? And that's absolutely right. And look, social media is designed, they're using algorithms to make you mad. Because it increases engagement, right? Engagement meaning you argue with each other, right? And so, you know, understand a lot of that is designed to trigger you purposefully. And so some of those people are reacting to that stimulus, right? Because they don't have God in their life, they're going to even more so react to that stimulus than we would, right? So understand that and don't hold that against them. I know I've said this so many times in this class. Don't be mad at the blind because they're blind. They don't know it. And you being mad at them isn't going to teach them either, right? So keep that in mind. Lead them to the door. Lead them to the curb, right? Lead them as a cane, but don't be mad at them just because they're blind. All right, we're out of time. So who will say a prayer for me? We'll end things up, and we'll continue where we left off next week. Sorry, I know I used a good bit of time for that video, but I thought it was pretty cool that these prophecies are occurring as we speak. So, all right, who'll say a prayer and we'll end things up? Yes.
Dear Father, I thank you so much for what we learned from you today through your word, Lord. Thank you for the fact that you used Charles to present that, and also thank you for all the women who from this field. Lord, I pray right now as we do a service, Lord, that we give our time to you, Lord, as we should, to really listen to what you have to say in this message that our pastor will give. Also ask, Lord, if anyone knows you, if somebody there that doesn't know you, Lord, I pray to go to you that day that they would give their life to you. I thank you for these things, Lord, and ask all these things in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. All right, any prayers for the prayer requests? Any prayer requests for the week? Yes.
Our brother Garrett, he had prostate cancer yesterday.
Garrett or Gareth?
Garrett.
Gareth, okay.
He was successful, but now
Good.
he's a long road to recovery.
Sure.
Just pray for Garrett and please their wife, Karen.
And Karen, his wife, okay.
And also our children, 2 daughters for salvation.
Okay. What's their names?
Alicia and Patricia.
Alicia and Patricia. Okay. Awesome. Any others? No more? Okay. All right, guys. Well, you all have a great week. Thank you so much for a wonderful class, and God bless. And we'll begin where we left off last week. And this will be posted in the next day or two. All right.
Thank you, Charles.
Hey, how are you? Very good, very good. That's a very pretty dress on you.
take me to go find?
Yeah, there you go. You found it.
Mr. Tommy brought me one.
Awesome, awesome.
So I appreciate it.
Yeah, bud.
Thanks,
I hope
sir.
you enjoyed the class. and
Definitely.
Hope to see you back.
For sure. Thank you.
I'm Cliff.
Ben.
Ben.
That's what it says.
Paul and Sandra may come to church specifically.
That video was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, the quality of it could have been better, but I'm trying to record a YouTube recording, so, you know.
Oh, yeah.